ARMM, what was provided was 5.6 billion. And over the years, it's been increasing. So you could say, just by looking at that row alone, that government really is providing ARMM what it committed to in terms of expenditures. 5.6, 6.6, 7.9, 9.2. Until you compare it with other regions. If it is true that government is giving arms much more than all the other regions because of this peace agreement, then it should show, right, in the regional comparison. But just take a look at two regions, Arm and Caraga. Caraga is a new region. It was created in 1996. In 1997, the funding given to Caraga was 0.25 billion, as against Arm 6.6 billion. But look at year 2000. By the year 2000, Caraga had grown to 10 billion, but Arm only got 9.7 billion. So, why is Caraga worthy of so much attention in terms of expenditure? Did they have a special peace agreement that we don't know about? No. Is it an area of conflict? No. Is it particularly poor? No. Are its constituents thrown all over the place? Or is it contiguous? Contiguous, right? So it makes you wonder why Caraga would be getting more from national government when it is ARMM that's poor, conflict affected, and the subject of a peace agreement brokered by an international organization. So clearly, the rhetoric does not match the reality. Next. Where does arms money go? Okay, somebody would probably say corruption. Granted, we cannot take that away. We still have to do our analysis on how much money has been lost due to corruption. But let's just take a look. 70% of the funds that go to ARMM go to pay salaries. And this is much higher than the percentage share in other regions. When you're talking about maintenance and operating expenses, repairs of schools, things like that, 15.8%. Capital outlay, building of schools, purchasing of books and equipment, computers, you only have 14.2%, much lower than other regions. So, are you going to say that ARM is inefficient because 70% of its expenditures goes to salary? Let's take a look at the next slide. Next. This is what some institutions have said about expenditures in ARM. They say that there's a World Bank study that says teachers are 75% of the armed workforce, followed by the Department of Health. 80% of people who draw salaries in ARM, therefore, are teachers, nurses, etc., who provide basic services. So if 80% of the salary drawers are these people who you know very well, you cannot really say that the 70% of salaries that go to ARM is being lost because of 1530 or appointments of consultants, etc. Because there is a record here that a lot of the salaries do go to pay government services. There are the vault offices that have to be maintained by ARMM, and the fact that ARMM has an elected regional government structure with a legislative assembly, they have to be paid for as well. Which other region can you think of has an elected regional governor and an elected regional legislative assembly? No other region. Who pays for all of this? It's got to be paid for by the personal services budget of ARMM. JICA study shows that even though we have got all of this personnel devolved to ARM, still the number of personnel is not sufficient to provide the services that ARMM requires. Next. This shows you where the money goes. 46% goes to local government, and this is explainable. You can explain it partly by the fact that you have this regional government structure that ARM has to pay for, a structure that does not appear in any other region. And then the next biggest slice goes to education with 26%. So, fiscal autonomy or fiscal dependency. There have been studies conducted by different institutions, the World Bank, this new policy center called Inside Gov, and they show that ARM is dependent on Manila. It's dependent on Congress, it's dependent on Malacanang, it's dependent on DBM. ARM is supposed to be autonomous, but it is actually being treated by Manila the same as any other administrative region. It's treated like Region 9 or the Cordillera. No special treatment for ARMM. Definitely not autonomous. Next. Studies that have been conducted looking at the control of ARM over its own funding shows us this. Only 4% of ARM funds is completely within the control of the ARM regional government. So kung 4% lang ng budget ang kontrolado ng ARMM regional government, is it really autonomous? It makes you question this particular situation. The World Bank Joint Needs Assessment has this to say, the ARM has no more real or practical autonomy in deciding on the level and allocation of funds intended for its politically distinct mandate that other non-autonomous administrative agencies of national government. So you've got two separate studies that tell us it is not autonomous at all. Next. Next. So, these are some other points that have been shown by studies conducted by other institutions. Our governance. The public services being performed by LGUs in other parts of the country are being performed by the regional government. So again, this puts burden on personal services. You need to be able to pay the salaries of those who do this, who perform these basic services. Our costs tend to be higher than those in other regions. This needs to be studied a little bit more because we need to know whether this is because of inefficiency or corruption or whether this is because of the fact that it is more expensive to administer a region na kalat-kalat ang mga probinsya. Kasi sa ARMM, there are 2 provinces, now 3, that are landlocked, Central Mindanao, and 3 provinces that are islands. So you can just imagine how difficult it is. The cost, the underlying, the additional cost to govern such an area. Thus, you have heavy mandates, you have increased mandates, but your funds to support the services is limited. Next. This is just a recap of the different disagreements between government and the MNL.